This is the edge of paddock 3 where we keep our Irish Dexter cattle, and we've been cleaning out the fence row a bit. So I'm going to show you what I've been doing here in a little while, but I've already got a bunch done. I've been working on this off and on for the last week or two, maybe longer. Papa came up here. He's got a little tractor with a little bush hog on the back, and he bush hogged this. But there's lots of trees over here as well. I'll bring you just a bit closer. So I've left some, but there's a lot that I've gotten rid of. Whenever we put this fence here, we went from tree to tree to save ourselves some posts. There are so many trees here, and a lot of them are junky trees that can't be used for very many things. They don't produce a whole lot of fruit. They're not really great for wood burning. Things like elm and hackberry and other things. Now, some of these hackberries are good because they have flowers on there, and they're really great for pollinators. Birds like them, and we want to help with our ecosystem here, create as much environment for them as we can. This was all full of trees here. About where the camera is was the passageway where we went through here, and it was kind of tight squeeze for us. But I left this red bud right here because I really like the red bud. I've done a video about them in the past. They have flowers on there that are edible. They're nitrogen fixers, got a lot of good things about them. And then there's some other things that I've left as well. This here's a hackberry. You can see by all the knots on there, it's very distinctive. So I probably wouldn't have left it if it was smaller, but if it's about the size of my thigh or bigger, I definitely leave it because I don't want to do anything with it yet. And I've got plenty of firewood in here. I'll probably end up cutting this eventually so we can come all the way clean over here to the fence. You can see the cattle over here waiting because they know what I'm doing. They know that I'm getting ready to cut some stuff and throw it over for them. But I've left this hackberry for now. You can see obviously behind me there's several other trees. These back here are kind of large specimens of honey locust. This right here, and you can tell that because it's got these barbs on here. It's also got some poison ivy growing up it. This is poison ivy right here. There's another honey locust on the inside of the fence there. It's tied to this cedar right here, and then there's some things over here that I'm going to leave for now as well. This looks like a shagbark hickory right here, and it's significantly bigger than my thigh. You can see over there the fence is tied to another hackberry. There's a big grapevine here. Look how big this grapevine is. It's pretty crazy. It looks like it might be an elm, and there's some other elms in here. There's a few more things I can clean out right here, but I'm gonna move to another location. I'm gonna shut the camera off, but we're gonna go way over there. I've been cleaning out all the way over here. It's looking way nicer than it did before. I'll show you another area that is all grown up here in just a minute. This over here is looking much, much nicer, and the cattle are over there just waiting for me to put some stuff in there for them. Again, this is a little bit further on. This is another area that I've cleaned out. There's not a whole lot here left. I've gotten most of the trees out of here, but again, it's over here. It's tied to a couple of hickories, maybe an ash or two. I can't tell. Is it tied to all those? It's tied to this one right here, but it's not tied to this one right here. So I might end up cutting this one at some point. I came up here with the intention of cutting this one right here. You see all these white flowers on here. This is an invasive. I think it's privet. It's either that or ligustrum, I forget exactly. I put it on my ID group on Facebook, and I think they said it was privet. But I was gonna cut it because it's an invasive, it's not from here, it's not native to this area. I don't really mind about that. I like native plants, but there's a lot of good invasive plants that aren't from this area that I really like as well. It's got all these flowers on here, so bees and pollinators love it. In fact, I see a bee on it right now up there. I kind of halfway don't want to cut it, so I might move on to something else. But I'll probably end up cutting it because it's not really in a great location. We want to come up straight up to the fence so we can, bush hog and till and plow and plant things over here. So I'm not going to cut it now. I would like your feedback though about this ligustrum. I'd like to know what you think, whether I should cut it or not. Let's move on. There's a few more things up here that I know I can cut. So I see a hickory back here that I'm going to cut, and there may be a couple little things right here. What is this? There's a little elm back here behind this. I'm going to leave these cedar for now because when we get the wood chipper going, then we're going to chip those for bedding and things like that. But you might be asking why I'm doing this again, and it's because that we can get this cleaned up and we can use more of it. Whenever the cattle do the things that they're doing in their pastures, then it'll make this wooded area more usable for us as well. So let me get my chainsaw. I almost always use eye protection and ear protection now. I used to not, but I'm getting older and I see the wisdom in that now, so use these things. I don't know if you can see those cows going after that elm immediately, but they like elm. I'm not sure how much they like hickory really, but sometimes they eat it anyway. So again, this is right where we were cutting a second ago, and there's a couple of good sized oaks. One that's probably, you know, got a diameter of almost 2 feet, and another that's got about 18-inch diameter over here. So I'm gonna leave those, so we can mill those later, or we can sell those for lumber if we want to. There's also a mulberry tree right here. I don't see that it has any fruit on it yet, but I'll go ahead and leave that for now. There's another hackberry over here. I'll probably cut it. But what I'm saying with this is this is going to take a long time, but I think it's worth it, because ultimately we'll be able to get all this cleaned up. There's more usable space. We'll be able to repair the fence just a little easier. Check out over here. Can you see the guineas over there? Doing their thing, eating bugs, eating ticks. So we really love the guineas on the homestead. And we love our cattle too, because we weren't doing anything at all with this wooded area, and we probably would have eventually, and we want to leave some areas wild for nature and for a good ecosystem, but we can clean up some of that as well. So, you know the guineas? Man, they're loud. But before we put them in here, this area over here was a jungle. This area is an area where we haven't cut many trees, so cattle have been just doing all the work, pushing some things down and all that stuff, and it still is quite jungly back here. So I'm going to be working my way up here to cut some stuff eventually for them, so that we can clean this up. But right now we're working on the outside of this and getting all this cleaned up. And if I cut it out from in here during the summer and the spring, then we get all this use off of it. The cattle can eat the leaves. They love it. It saves us a little bit on feed. Then this winter or next year, I think this is paddock 3. I'm cutting in paddock 3 this year, and I'm not going to cut any firewood out of it until next summer. So it'll be all seasoned and we can store it up, and it won't be all greenwood. So I'm going to cut everything as much as I can from paddock 1 this year, where they were all winter, and all that stuff has been sitting there for a year, so I can cut it and stack it and store it for cutting or for using for firewood this year. But anyway, this is something that we've been working on just a little bit. Papa's been helping me do some bush hogging, because he's got the little tractor with the bush hog on it. That's pretty much all we use that tractor for, is for just a little bit of bush hogging. We've got a lot more work to do. I did promise you I was going to show you one more area, so stand by 1 second. So just to give you some perspective, right back there was where we were just a moment ago. I'm going to turn this camera around. Right over here is this area that we haven't done anything with at all. I'll take you just a bit closer. So we haven't bush hogged over here. We haven't cut any trees over here, except for whenever we were running this barbed wire. We cut a few trees to make sure the path was pretty well for us, just some small trees that were in the way. But you can see over here that there's some trees down. There's all sorts of stuff. There's all sorts of greenery and grass and ground cover on the ground that really isn't very helpful. And over here is this field that we rent out to some farmers. Again, let me take you just a bit closer. closer. So you see all this right here on the ground, and you might be able to see some more, but let's look closer. So you can see where the cattle have been over here, where there's not much on the ground at all. Here's the barbed wire where the cattle have been, and over here on the outside of the fence. Now there's some things over here that we probably won't cut. There's some really big nice trees. This is a quite large hackberry right here. Here's a tree that fell down. We can cut it up, we can move it, you know, it's not going to be good for firewood because it's mostly rotten. There's another hackberry over here. There's a very large oak over here. Let's go just a bit closer. Again, some of this stuff is some stuff we can clean up. This space right here is wide enough that we can fit the bush hog between it and the barbed wire fence. So this is something we're going to clean up, and there's some other trees over here as well. You see these other 3 trees, we'll probably end up cutting at least a couple of those. So if you can see this tree, if it's in the frame, this is a tree that the barbed wire is tied to. This is a hickory tree. I won't be able to get the tractor through here and the bush hog through here, so I'll probably end up cutting this one. It's on the bigger side, but we can still, you know, we can still cut it and get some use out of it, you know, firewood and whatnot. And then this hickory right here we'll probably end up cutting as well. But this hickory on the other side of it, I think it's hickory. This hickory on the other side of it, I'll probably leave. And then these other 2 trees, look like oaks. Look how big this one right here is. Here I am standing in front of it, and it is about 4 times as wide as I am. And then this one over here. But if I cut this one over here, then we also get the tractor between this hickory that I mentioned a minute ago that we'll leave, and this one as well. And there's some other small things over here that I can clean up too. But I probably won't do that until maybe the time that they harvest this corn, so I don't have to get on the corn over here. But again, this is a lot of work, but it's going to be worth it. You develop your farm slowly, you do just a little bit at a time, and it makes a big difference in your garden, on your farm, and your homestead, and your family, just small victories. You're going to see this here in just a few years, and you're probably going to say, wow, how do you do all that? And this is exactly how. You can stick with us on our journey if you want to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a notification. You'll see all the things that we're doing and how it's building up all the things on this homestead and on this farm, and it's going to be a really great thing. Until next time, thanks.